so we will have it on the YouTube channel. So thank you again all for being here today. As I said, today the chair is Michael Ginzberg. So Dr. Ginzberg, the floor is yours. You are the one who is the leader, and I will be quiet.
Thank you, Alexander. Hopefully I can properly share my screen here. Where is it? Okay, you can see that, but it's not in. Okay, Claudia, what did you do to go into presentation mode? Because it's not, oh, there. Is it working now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so and overall the title is What Can Emeritus Faculty Members Do for Education? We have a number of us who are going to talk about it and sort of what we are doing. I guess I will say thank you to everybody now. I'll say thank you to everybody again. But let me start with sort of my perspective. I am indeed retired officially. I have officially failed retirement and am busily doing other things. And one of the things that struck me is that education, it started with looking at higher education in the U.S. is in a real trouble. And I really had two assertions I start with, that really there are problems with education probably at all levels in many parts of the world. Too few teachers with the appropriate training, an imbalance between what is demanded and what is available, unsustainable models for higher education, and I'll talk about that a lot in certainly the U.S. and I think also the context of a number of other advanced aging economies. And then on the other end, there is a lack of adequate institutions and resources in many developing countries. And again, I'm sort of focused on the higher education, but I think one could talk about what's happening at levels below that as well. So the second assertion is we as emeritus faculty, and I realize that Claudia, you're still gainfully employed, but emeritus faculty members have the potential to help and in a number of ways, and we'll hear about some of them, supporting and supplementing active faculty, supporting institutional leadership, helping to develop more sustainable models for education, and supporting the development of new institutions. And let me go back to focus on higher education, as I say, in the U.S. and in other aging advanced economies. The things that we're facing, demographics. So there is sort of I don't know if it's a cliff, but it's a steep hill. In the U.S., we are in a position where there are fewer 18-year-olds graduating high school each year, and that's expected to continue the pattern for probably at least 20 more years. Although I'm sure that someone could argue that if we have enough people surging through the border, that will change. But there is this continual decline in the number of 18-year-olds, sort of the traditional entering college population, and then migration as people are moving from one place to the other. I lived in New England in the Northeast for much of my life. And the Northeast and the Midwest in the U.S. are losing population. Other parts of the country are gaining it. Changes in preference of international students. We have seen many fewer students from out of the U.S. coming to school in the United States in recent years. Some of that I blame on COVID. Some of that I would blame on our previous president. In fact, I was at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. We had a program there that was, we would get 35 Indian students a year, year after year after year after year. Donald Trump came to office, made it much more difficult and less hospitable for international students to come to the U.S. The following year, we had 0 Indian students apply. It was dramatic. The other issues facing us: changing job demands and employment opportunities, declining government support, and there's been particularly the state governments have been reducing the amount they're willing to put into supporting higher education. And as prices went up, I just heard on the news this morning that for the first time, the cost of the all-in list price cost for I can't remember who they said it was, but it topped $90,000 a year. So, as I said, a family of 3 said if they all went to college paying full price, will spend $1 million on sending those 3 kids to college. There has been questioning of the value of higher education, and do I really need a degree? And they're new viable competition. Some of it's geographic, some of it's online, corporate universities, and then cost. Ever increasing costs of faculty, facilities, technology, security, staff, which really leads to unsustainable models, business models. So pictorially, you have the money issues on one side, increasing costs, declining government support, reduced student family ability or willingness to pay. You've got on the program issue, changing student needs and preferences, changing employment opportunities and demands, a shrinking student applicant pool, and increasing competition for those students. And what you get is the squeeze, which I think is an unsustainable model for higher education. I'll probably say this again, but I track, there's a publication called Inside Higher Education, which tracks how many universities have closed. In the U.S. since 2016, 106, this was now 2 weeks ago, but I looked at 106 universities. 106 universities have either closed or been absorbed by other universities because they were about to close, and there are dozens of them out there right now. And it's particularly difficult for small liberal arts colleges that aren't they're not the Wellesleys, Bryn Mawrs, the very best known schools, and also for state institutions which aren't the flagship institution in the state. So what's the current state of the industry? Overcapacity and too few students. Soaring recruiting costs, including the discount rate. Actually, I don't know what it is this year, but the typical discount rate from the rack rate tuition that is prevalent among private schools these days is well over 50%. So it may say it has a $30,000 tuition, but the students are actually paying more like 12. So this contributes obviously to the university's cost problems. Lack of capacity in high demand areas, lack of desired delivery options. More and more students would like to see online or short courses or options other than what we are offering. Inefficient operations. Every faculty member, certainly in the U.S., every faculty member will complain about administrative bloat, and there has been some of that. But I would also say that there have been sort of facilities and amenities wars. One of my friends has a son who's going to the University of Texas at Austin. He went down there, and when he saw the facilities for athletics, swimming. He said, I don't know of a country club that I could join that provides this type of facilities, and it keeps increasing. The result is bleeding bottom lines, and more and more institutions are operating in the red. And as I said, more than 106 institutions, U.S. institutions, have closed or merged in the past 8 years, and it's really just 7 years. I think it's a difficult problem for several reasons. You know, we have a tradition. We have a 1,000-year tradition, and I know usually we talk about the oldest university in the world being in Bologna, but Luigi, I have to apologize, but I visited Hunan University in Changsha, and they explained to me, no, they are the oldest university in the world. The Yulu Academy was founded in 976. So, you know, we have a more than 1,000-year tradition. And I think that we're experiencing major discontinuities in the way things are done. The usual solutions won't solve the problem. If I look at what the consultants have been trying to tell schools they need to do, is you need to recruit harder, recruit more students. Well, if the pool is shrinking and everybody's spending more to recruit more students, then you're going to get the same result at a much higher cost. It is complex, many changes and many interconnected parts. I started my life doing systems modeling with Jay Forrester at MIT. And I didn't start my life, I started my education that way. It's often difficult to see how the parts interact and what they create. And I really think that this whole issue of siloed organizations and siloed thinking is also critical. We tend to build our silos both on the academic side and on the administrative side, and we lack the sort of the systems, the broad overview perspective. I think there's also a lack of willingness or ability to make bold decisions. Higher education, my experience is the higher education institutions in the U.S. are often poorly managed, that the way one became the president was because of one's great facility in a field which has, and I don't want to pick a field that anybody here is in, a great astronomer. And you know, being a great astronomer does not necessarily prepare you for managing a large, complex institution. And the other thing is hubris. There's often a focus on preserving the institution and the institution's independence rather than preserving the mission of the institution. So, you know, potential solutions, you know, rethink the market both geographically and demographically, rethink the products beyond degrees. This whole notion of badges that many students would like to see, just-in-time learning. I'll pick this up just as I need it, or I don't need all that goes around it. And I think, Gregory, you're going to probably argue against that later on, and I'm anxious to hear. I think we need to think about different models of education. There are a couple places that I've talked to that are trying to build a lifetime maintenance model. One of my mentors as a doctoral student, actually, I think he chaired my dissertation committee, Peter Keene, used to always talk about, why don't we treat people more like machines? And you know, that when you first hear that sounds terrible, but what he meant was we have no problem spending 10% a year on machine maintenance. Well, why don't we spend 10% a year on educational maintenance for people as well? Because our educational needs, what we need to know, changes over time. Rethink delivery models. You know, different delivery models have different costs, and you know, clearly a small seminar versus a large lecture versus hands-on learning. I'm going to be spending 2 months this fall in Prague advising project groups from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. is very focused on project-based learning. But different models have different costs. And then I think we're hesitant to think like entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs always talk about a minimum viable product. I've never heard a university talk about a minimum viable product. And then I suggest we need to think about a systems view. At the institutional level, it's reduced duplication. And when I was at the Case Western Reserve and running our MBA program, I decided to look at, do we have any duplication in what we offer there? And I looked just at a couple of things and found that things like discounted cash flow, net present value, was taught in 4 different required courses, assuming that the student had never heard of the concept before. If there are lots of duplications like that. At the broader community level, the notion of shared service organizations, does every small school really need its own complete finance department, complete IT department, whatever you want to think of it, or can these be shared? And then partnerships, shared programs, shared courses. I was in Massachusetts for the last 5 years of my career, and one of the interesting things that began happening while I was there is the secondary state institutions decided we don't all need to teach a full range of French, Italian, Spanish, German, Mandarin, Japanese courses, but Framingham can teach French, and Bridgewater can teach Italian, and because much of the learning is done online in any case, or technology enabled, it works just as well for the students. And then the final thing I think that schools need to think about is mergers and acquisitions, and you'll see why in 1 second. Save the mission versus saving the institution. So what am I doing trying to use the lessons of my 45 years on faculties? I am doing some strategic consulting to universities in transition. I've worked with Hungarian universities since 1993, and there have been big changes, and there are big changes going on now. Many of them are changing from basically state institutions to sort of quasi-private foundation universities, and it is a big change in how they should operate. Elm 2 Advisors, we call it the subtitle, Strategic Transactions for Higher Education. This is 4 partners, and I will say the name is our name, so it's Elmore, Larry, Michael, and Matt is how we got to Elm 2. And we are really brokering institutional partnerships, both operational and academic, and supporting institutions through the merger and acquisition process. The reason that I think we are successful and people choose us versus the traditional consultants in the field is long experience as faculty members. Elmore, Larry, and I all have over 40 years on faculty. We have over 100 years in various administrative positions. Elmore, we were all deans of business schools. I was associate provost. Also, Larry was the president of 2 institutions, Colorado State and Thunderbird, which is called School of International Management. We understand faculty. I mean, I think that as having lived that long, in fact, with faculty, we do understand them in a way that the typical consultant, and the typical consulting firm is made up of a lawyer, an investment banker, and a bunch of freshly minted MBAs who are sent out to do all the work. We don't do that. Matt, by the way, is the second M, happens to be my son, and he is an investment banker. And then, one of the points I made at the very beginning is that in developing economies, there is often a lack of appropriate institutions. I have the great privilege of being the lead consultant in the development of a new university based on the WPI project-based model of education. It'll be primarily an engineering and science-focused institution, and it's it is an interesting project to start this. We're not only starting a new university, but a new town as well. So my simple summary is, education systems and institutions around the world are facing a multitude of challenges. Emeritus faculty members, we have a wealth of relevant experience, and helping challenged institutions is interesting fun, always providing psychic rewards and on occasion financial rewards. And thank you. And that's, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm not sure, well, thank you. Yes. I don't have the schedule in front of me, so I'm not sure who's, how do you, who's next? Josie, I couldn't hear you.
Richard is next to speak. Then is Claudia.
Thank you. If there's a quick question now, we could do that, but I think that we will have time at the end for questions, but all right. Richard, where are you? There you are. Please, but unmute yourself first.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm here. Well, thank you. I asked for 10 minutes on the agenda, and I have a timer here that I'm going to click on, and I have one slide and made a PDF of that slide, and it's up in the chat, so you can download it. But it's let me see if I can share the one slide, which is right here.
I believe you have permission.
Share that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let me see if I can. Okay. Sharing a slide.
We see it.
We see it.
Oh, you see it? Okay.
Yes.
I don't quite see it yet. You can see it up here? Okay.
See where we need to see it.
Okay, well, okay. Let me start my timer, and a little bit about my background. I'm not really an emeritus faculty, but my heart is definitely in the university classroom. I had 14 years in academia, 2 institutions, and then I left academia, did some startups, one of which I grew to 180 employees and sold that, which gave me a little bit of freedom to kind of do what I would like to do. And so I went as an industry analyst, focusing on the whole information technology evolution through the 90s and 2000s, and had a specialty in the area of enterprise data warehousing. So I traveled the world doing conferences, presentations, 1 to 4 day workshops, things of that nature. And when I was doing those professional workshops, I would have, maybe 15 to at the most 25 students, and we'd have several days together. And that was just a unique teaching experience. These were motivated people. They wanted to learn the material. We may end class a little early in the afternoon and go out and have a pint at the local pub in London. So there was, I had a very good experience in terms of what professional teaching was and how that contrasts to the typical classroom. And my current passions, so the pandemic came around, that kind of zapped the in-person conferences, and I thought, enough of this. And traveling, especially internationally, was no longer fun. So I decided to then shift to, what are my passions? And I think, I started going techie. Started to get into some of the fundamental research problems in deep learning, which is now sort of transferred into the whole AI craziness that we're currently in. So I am doing WILS, wandering in latent space, and I'm trying to locate the sort of the fine local structures that occur in the semantic spaces that these large language models create. Enough of that. University teaching, my heart's still there, and so I'm 2 miles from my local university, which is the main campus of the University of Colorado. So I struck up some relationships with the people on campus there over the last, I would say, 3-4 years in that time frame. And one of the things I learned was that really a lot of the burden of doing teaching, especially at the undergraduate level, laid on junior teaching faculty. And I underline the word teaching, which is different than tenured or tenure track professors. So what happened in the 30, 40 years that I left academia, the fundamental courses are being taught by people on a 2 or 3 year contract, and they're only there for teaching. They have no research obligations. In fact, if they get interested in research, they say, they're told, well, why are you interested in that? We're not paying you for doing that. So there's become a distinction which really strikes me as very unhealthy, because the latest insights and excitement of the frontiers of research are not being bought into those initial classes. So my heart went out for that. So what did I do? Well, I started cultivating some friendships at my local former university, and I found that this was very much like any type of mentoring situation. You've got to build trust. So you got to really understand and be sympathetic to their motivations and challenges in the teaching. And it had shifted over these decades from what I was used to. Grading pops at the top of the list of a lot of these people. They have huge classes. So, it's all multiple choice, and you just crank it through the machine, and that's your grade, okay? Yeah, anyways, what happened to the old oral exams where you invited each student in individually and said, well, what did you learn? What was exciting? Explain more about that, and grading in the one-on-one type of setting. There's also they're under contract, so their motivation is to do a good job teaching. So when you give them suggestions like, why don't you add this curriculum or drop this and put more emphasis on that, you got to be careful here, because I find that they do not have the authority to change the curriculum very much. I mean, they can supplement it, but they can't move things around or this sort of thing. They're given the textbook, they're almost given the syllabus that has been handed down year after year. It's part of their contract. That's what they're there for, to teach, not just to teach, but to teach this particular curriculum. And one of the things that struck me is that as I got into my own little research passion of deep learning and neural networks, and as I could see the innovations building towards what we're seeing today in terms of large language models and AI craziness, I said, you know, I started waving flags and I said, hey, you got to start paying attention to this stuff. So I offered to do guest lectures. I did an initial three lecture series for them in the area. You know, what's a neural network? What does it mean to train that? What's back propagation? And, you know, kind of the fundamentals, which are now blowing up in much more complexity. The other thing I found is that there's very little interaction between the teaching faculty. I mean, they get together for, faculty meetings, but it's all on policy and procedures and, you know, things of that nature. And so just saying, hey, if you talk to someone about how they're teaching this, I think that's applicable in terms of teaching techniques. So I've been having sort of cross-fertilization to my repertoire of mentoring tools. I've given a number of guest lectures. I think the prior semester, I think I did about 9 over on campus and enjoyed them. A lot of times it was, they had the 3 sections back to back. So you go for an hour and 15 minutes, you get a 15-minute break, another hour and 15 minutes, 15-minute break, hour and 15, and then you're done for the day. That's the typical teaching load on that on a lot of the people that I'm mentoring over there. And mentoring, I want to put a small M on it. I mean, it's just informal mentoring. I did try to form a study group in which I call Doing AI, and and there was, a couple of years ago, there was one point where, if you really wanted to understand AI, you had to take a little bit of Python and kind of piece it together and come up with, hey, just plug this API in and send it off, and you get back to these really strange and miraculous things. And so I wanted to share those simple tools in which they can then use as teaching examples in the classroom. And so we set up a Slack channel. We started, trying to schedule meetings. They didn't have time. They were just kind of maxed out. I couldn't find common times to get 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them together at the local restaurant or coffee shop or something like that. So I wish we could restart that somehow. Also, I found that at the start of the semester, like 2 weeks before, their attention shifts to setting up their curriculum and getting it plugged into Canvas. And that's the time to really chat with them. And if you wanted to change anything, it kind of gets set in concrete at before classes start. So if you really want to make any substantive changes in this sort of thing, that's the sweet time to really engage and try to offer some advice that may be incorporated into the actual class. One of the things I have not done yet, but I think is a great idea, is that we've got a lot of very interesting local businesses. Some of them are 2 or 3 person companies. Some of them are 300, 400 people, employees. And they're all within maybe 5 miles of the campus. Take them on a tour and say, look, on Saturday morning, this company is going to open its doors. They're going to have some of the chief executives there. We're going to go out to the assembly line. We're going to, look at it and see how data analytics is actually affecting their business. I think that's a great idea. Haven't engaged with that sort of thing. And the final point I'd make on my slide here, and I've ran out of time, well, not bad timing actually, is stay current on your research especially, and make sure that you share the frontiers that are happening. As teaching faculty, they don't have that that insight on what's exciting next. Now, we've almost been trampled to death with all this AI craziness that's currently happening. And of course, everybody's scrambling now to try to make some sense out of the current situation and where we're heading, both in a positive and a negative way. So it's introduced, I think, a lot of opportunities and excitement, but at the same time, a bit of chaos and noise in that whole process. So that's my experience, my 2 cents as somebody whose heart is still in the classroom. Questions or comments? Michael, back to you.
Thanks, Dick. And as you talk about AI craziness, you're not someone who's coming to that from some totally different field. You and I were both involved in AI early on, I believe.
Oh, yes, we were.
50 years or so ago. In any case,
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
There's a YouTube video that I just ran across in the last 2 days that go back and does an excellent 30-year history of where we came from, technology and theoretically, in this current AI craziness. So I'll see if I can share that on chat here as we go on.
Thank you. So Josie tells me that Claudia, you're up next, and I think that what you're going to talk about fits very nicely with a couple of the points that Dick just made.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all of you to let me talk here. I'm not yet at the emeriti or retired status, so let me try to share my slides. Well, it's 1 or 2, we shall see. Do you see the slide?
The other one, Claudia. This is again not the
presentation. Yeah, okay, but I have to do this first. So now it's fine?
This is good. Yeah, this is
perfect.
Good.
So thank you very much again. My name is Claudia.Loebbecke, and I'm from the University of Cologne in Germany. I'm not yet retired or emeriti, but hopefully I can share a little initiative with you that we started about a month ago. And I know that there's at least 2 people online who are member or active in this initiative. So sorry if I bore you. So the idea is that I have been pretty active in our professional academic society, the Association for Information Systems, which proudly celebrates its 30th year this year. And just for those of you who have never heard about it, because I saw in the list that you're also from very different disciplines, we have about, or the AIS has about, I have to look at it, almost 5,000 members as of this month from more than 100 countries. And typically AIS, Association for Information Systems, members are on either IAS faculty or IAS PhD students. So whatever it is. The AIS has different groupings, local chapters, topic groupings, and also colleges. One of them is the College of Senior Scholars, which has 150 to 200 members. And it's very clearly defined who is a member there. So we need this by the end of the slide. Out of these 150 to 200 senior scholars, of these 5,000 total members, about 1/4 is retired or emeritus, roughly speaking. So this AIS then started a program last year, actually in 2023, called the AIS Career Mentoring Program. So this relates to IAS faculty careers. Mentoring, there's different steps. And after a first year led by our colleague Jane Fedorovich, we are now in the second year where I have the honor to chair a committee running this program. These are 5 international scholars. Some of you know them very well, others names are not so important. Jane Fedorovich, Helmut Kretschmer, Atrey Kankahali, and Win Chin, in any order. And so what do we do? That's kind of the interesting part, because I think it could be a role model for maybe other disciplines. First thing I did in sharing the committee is I invited senior scholars, potential mentors, to volunteer as a mentor in this calendar year. I invited all these 150 to 200 senior scholars up there on the upper right corner. Plus, we also have a College of Academic Leadership. So those also got invited or tried to be gained. And also the conference track chairs of this year's ICIS conference, the seemingly most prestigious conference, which happens to be or will be in Bangkok this year, which brings some scholars from that part of the world. And magically enough, after a while, I had 75 mentors volunteering to help out in this program. So I thought it was pretty cool, to be honest. And then the next thing was to find the mentees. And here's the rule for the mentees. We invited via different mailing lists and any kind of sharing. I asked faculty to apply as mentee if they fulfill certain conditions. One is they must have finished their PhD. They are not allowed to have or should not have a top publication yet. Again, in the field that's pretty clearly defined. And they're either non-tenured, non-permanent, or a self-declared minority. A difference from last year is that I gave up on saying we decide who is a minority. If somebody says I am in a minority status, this counts. And it's worthwhile thinking about this criteria a little bit, because the no top publication yet basically excludes 99% of top school IS faculty, right? So if you want to become assistant associate professor in a top school in the United States or even most parts of Europe, you must have one of those pubs, so you're out of the program. That's a kind of program design issue. Magically, we got 75 valid applications. I mean, that's pretty cool. And to be very honest, although I know this is recorded, we had 72. And then I thought, whoa, I have more mentors than mentees. And I kind of actively invited 3 who I would know would qualify. So that's pretty much a miracle, I think, but that's where we are. Then what do? We do guarantee to the mentees that we hold their privacy. We kind of anonymize those who wanted to be anonymized. And then we had a public drawing. You see my own slide. Then we had a public drawing of mentee-mentor pairs. And to me, it was very important to make this public, so nobody thinks I find the best mentee for Michael Ginzberg or my close friend in Cologne. It was public, and there were some senior faculty online who watched it, so it was pretty transparent. We did this on February 28th, and that's 20-minute exercise, right? You have some software by which you can do the drawing. And then I informed the pairs by emails, 1 email per pair. And by now, within 1 month and 2 days, I got the notion that all of them say they have met. One of them sent me an email about an hour ago, Nava Pliskin, who kind of said they had just had the first meeting. And so that's why she's here now. I think it's pretty cool. And yeah, what can we do? From now on, whatever the pairs do is fully up to the pair. I don't care. Most mentors are significantly more senior than I am. So I don't need to tell them how to mentor, but they check with their mentee. And the only thing I will have to do is to come back by the next ICIS conference and report on how the program worked. And for that reason, the mentees should send me a little 3-4 line report by November, what worked, what didn't work, so on and so forth. Now, same slide, but kind of a different slide. I called this organizing for win-win. And I think, of course, it's a win for the mentees. It's completely voluntary. They're from all over the world, and they have nothing to lose. I think it's also pretty positive for the mentors, whether they're active or retired. Emeriti. Everybody volunteered to come in. They can stay internationally involved without having to travel. They get mentees in most cases from different continents. And well, you know better than I do, they tell me they can participate and give back. Some mentees are really from very different backgrounds, but hey, who cares? I mean, they have never met somebody from the core AIS, core academic association. The random drawing is not the best of all matches. Last year they did, as I said, organized matching, but it's fair. And I think this fairness is very, very important to those who are not in our best known institutions around us, but from other parts of the world. So, and last but not least, I think it's also an option to bring people from true minority settings, whatever that is, it's my own phrasing, in contact with an academic network called the AIS. So I can only truly recommend this. And I think it takes a large enough network so you don't meet the mentee next door. That's not good for the mentee. And if two people have nothing to share, fair enough. And with that, I really like to thank, I can share this truly fresh initiative. The last pair matched, or no, not didn't match, but met yesterday. First time ever. And thank you very much. Questions, complaints, whenever you want. Thank you.
Actually, Claudia, I'm meeting my mentee for the first time on Friday.
Fair enough, but you're green on my list because you said you would meet. My list is completely green by now. And Richard, if I may say, I don't think I had you on the list because we have this kind of invitee list. But from what I heard earlier, maybe we could have the whole Emeriti network as potential mentors on the list, and those who are not in IS would just not agree. So that's something we could think about for next year.
He'd be a good addition.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Claudia. If I recall correctly, Luigi is next on our list. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct. Luigi is coming.
Okay. Thank you very much. And first of all, I wish to thank Michael because really, during my years, I never heard a so complete and full discussion about the market of education. So really, thanks, Michael. And I add that this is the demonstration of how much can be an emeritus or a retired professor for academic community, because his discussion can be an example in how to face the problems. So I have not much to add to what he said so well. So just I want to tell you my experience connected to what Michael said. So let me start. The university student programs and curricula are generally based on a vision of education that we must define deterministic, because it's based on different subjects and disciplines, all added together in a scheme of years: grammar, math, science, and so on, and scheduled along this cycle of studies. But what happened last century? In the second part of the last century, we observed that there was a little modification of this vision, in the sense that education was considered not a deterministic approach, but an holistic approach. Which is the difference? That in the case of holistic, we cannot consider education just at the addition of many different subjects and disciplines. You must add something more than a simple addition. This is what happened in the last century when some content of education began to be considered. I am speaking about sustainability, I am speaking about ethics, I am speaking about moral economy, I am speaking about social policy. So they are content that are not really well addressed to a single discipline. So there is something more that must be added to education in order that it can be considered complete. So when this process was faced from the management point of view, from the administrative point of view, it was necessary to add to the career of a student something more in order that this new vision of education could be fulfilled. And when we went to this, what was seen in our faculties? That all the times and all the spaces available were already occupied by the disciplines traditional, with no really more spaces to be covered. And so this new addition of to complete education was really difficult to be concreted. So what happened? Rose masters, rose special school, rose professional courses, rose some initiatives from single university in order to cover this need that was not possible to be covered by traditional lectures and lessons because no space, no times available. This is exactly what happened also in my university. So, for instance, one of the subject, ethics of chemistry, because I am a chemist, was really considered a content needed by a complete vision of education, but really not available in the official career of student. There was no teaching, no learning about ethics of chemistry in our 5-year courses, 5 years courses here. So this is, and I came to our point, this is a space that emeritus and retired can cover. This new vision of education we call holistic in comparison with deterministic. And this aspect can be covered by our experience. So, for instance, and I come to my experience, is 3 years I am addressing to my 2 students of my faculty a cycle of 10 seminars on ethics of chemistry. It is articulated in 3 chapters. Chapter number 1, responsibility of the researchers. Number two, social aspect of researchers. Number three, sharing of results of research, what we call open science. About 20 students each year come to my lectures. And so my help to my faculty and to my department is to allow the student who have no official courses dealing with such so important subject as ethics to approach it, to be formed also in this aspect. In any case, to enrich the education level of our students. So my proposal that falls very well within what Michael said is the passage from the deterministic vision of education to holistic vision obliges to insert within the program some aspects that are not really today transmitted as traditional discipline. For this, we can put our experience at the services of our faculty. Thank you.
Thank you, Luigi. And I think that makes a terrific amount of sense. And the perspective one has from years in the academy adds something beyond the traditional discipline. John, you posted a couple of questions. Do you want to talk about those now, or I think we have a couple of minutes if you'd like to raise those now to make sure everybody sees them? John, that's you I'm talking to.
Yes, okay, just very quickly. Thoughts I was having during the other presentations, and in a sense, almost coming back to quite simple questions, but memories from the work I've done in higher education over the years, and a memory of interviewing a vice chancellor of a British university many years ago, who emphasized that her key role, in her view, was about protecting what this university does so well. And I've often thought that that was a quite interesting comment, and I think is very relevant to today, because we've been hearing about all the changes that are taking place. The changes bring opportunities and they bring challenges, but if we make the wrong changes, we will be destroying the benefits of what higher education has been providing over the years. Another interesting memory I have, this is bringing more positive change in, that from work I've done about graduate employment, one of the things I've often heard from the employer point of view is in terms of why are we bothering to recruit graduates? The answer has quite often been because we are recruiting change agents for our organizations who are going to improve what we are already doing. And then one of my questions, I think for now, is that still the case? And links into issues of critical thinking as being central to higher education. So I think what to protect and how to do it, what to change and how to do it, for me remain central questions, you know, both within higher education and outside of higher education. So just a thought.
You know, when you say recruiting change agents, what strikes me is why are they change agents, or how are they change agents? And at least in part, it's because they know something that those currently in the organization don't. And so it seems one of the things that maybe it's whether it seems almost circular, but in order to be able to protect what we do, we have to change so that we produce something which is new and valuable.
Of course, it is one is having to do both.
Yeah. Well, thank you. If I recall the program, Lucia, I think you would be next.
Yes, thank you. Can I share my PowerPoint? Yeah.
For some reason, Zoom has just told me it thinks I'm speaking Arabic, which I promise I am not.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here with you today. I'm from Slovenia, former rector of one of Slovenian universities, public one, researcher in linguistics, and a former minister for science in the government of Slovenia, creator of university European University Association and so on. And I say hello to all of you that I know very well. So, I present today a topic that is not so large, so general, or centered on Emeriti ethical and legal aspects. So there was a group in 2012. Joseph Richard sent us an invitation to join a group of experts, and we intended to prepare one document or one small pattern research on legal documents, research and contribution to public good. So, as you can see, there are 6 countries from Europe and USA, from the USA and Canada. That Caroline.Loebbecke is also with us today. So we did this small research. The remark was to elaborate the topic and to discover the impact of aging seniors and potential improving and strengthening generation solidarity, including monitoring or experience sharing. The need to discuss this topic seems important to us, so we started somehow to see that more and more countries want to continue to offer their competencies and their possibility to share their knowledge. It's about academic community, but also those that are not Emeriti. We have a problem that in Europe, some countries don't distinguish anymore Emeriti and retired. So we tried to join all the group, both in general. Yeah.
Can you hear well?
Sorry?
I really hear very not well the voice by Lucia. Can you hear well?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We have
your
a
point.
problem with others. Hello.
It's easier if you speak into the direction of the PC or microphone.
I'm asking if there is a problem with audience.
Better.
Better. I will go nearer. Okay. So, more and more retired people, I said, want to continue.
If you can go more to your right, I think it's better. Yeah, this direction looking is better than if you look straight.
Now is better, yeah.
Now it's no good.
Usually I
right.
have not.
If you,
I don't have problems, so
now
I'm
it's
very
easier.
surprised. Okay. But you see my slides. You see my slides. I have no reaction.
It's always better when you turn your head a little bit to the right.
To the right, so?
Much better now, much better now.
Okay, I'm very sorry for this inconvenience. I'm really sorry. So I just take one quotation from Charles Darwin. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time in life, he does not discover the value of the life. So starting from this quotation, we create a pattern of 11 countries, 23 respondents, and collecting opinions on this topic, and to prepare a survey in 3 points on legal issue related to emeritus and retired professor status at the national level, and reviewed their contribution to research, teaching, academic self-governance, and interregional cooperation, and the access to IT services. Possible engagement of emeriti and research professor in research and education offer us some data. It's okay now?
Yeah, he is okay. It's okay. Now he's okay.
Okay, just tell me. I'm speaking to somebody or to nobody.
Now it's okay, Lucia. It's okay.
It's okay. So we found that sometimes, in general, especially in Greece, the retired and emeriti remain active in research as leaders. That was the problem, as leaders of the research. Sometimes they continue to do research, but the principal investigator must be non-retired faculty member, like in Canada, USA, and Slovenia. The monitoring of young researchers in Austria, for instance, Greece, and Slovenia, there are strict regulations. Emeriti and retired can be engaged in postgraduate studies. That's very frequent, the teaching and monitoring doctoral candidates. But most of countries, this is reserved to the emeritus, not to the normally retired professor. They can have lectures, as we have seen in the USA, and remain in touch with the communities. For instance, access to library or secretariat or access to the databases and so on. One of the list of good practice we found in Canada. You have here the contact on the website. But we found also that emeriti and research professors are very appreciated experts out of academia, at the national and international. We have seen that 72% of Professor Emeriti are retired, for instance, in Austria or in France, are working on innovative strategies. They're working on studies, presentations, research with doctoral candidates, presenting their research with them. But it's a problem that small external university grants, for example, Canada, USA, and also external grants are not very high. At the national, international level and industrial or local grants, usually the grants are small. Austria, Greece, Slovenia. The problem is that all research founded by the government, for instance, in Slovenia, Austria, and Greece, are reserved for active, for employed researchers. If you contribute something, you have 0 hours or small reimbursement for the research that you are doing. In Italy, as I was informed also by Luigi, even for the lecturer at the university, they are not paid at all. But somewhere the rules to participate in teaching are very strict. Or for instance, the present of some faculty retired professor or emeriti in Senate, faculty Senate is very rare. Even it's more rare during the right to attend the faculty meetings, but if there are, without voting, for instance, in USA. In general, it seems that they don't play a significant role in academic standards, nor their desire to cooperate. Here we have a question to pose. Are the university professor stealing the work to younger colleagues, or they are better to support this intergenerational collaboration? This is a question that you can just give the answer normally. But instead of this, it is a case that this feeling is present. The true story of our research is that in all 6 cases of 6 countries, there are no laws or regulation rights for their cooperation in labor market is limited. There are few initiatives. One of those is very well done by our user in Slovenia, recognition of emeriti and retired professor for the soft period of transition with teaching and research. But somehow, large number of those may simply be ready to retire completely. That were their answers. We can imagine that attitude towards emeriti, retired professor, vary widely and reflect cultural and traditional attitudes towards older people in general. That is the culture of the nation. We have one ambition. We have this ambition to have more Minister of Seniors appointments, as we have now in Australia, Canada, Boulder, New Zealand, Scotland, and Wales. What can do the Minister for Seniors? He ensures policies concerning healthcare, financial security, and so on. Proactivity, collective voices of seniors, and advise them. He can help the government to understand and make better decisions on the needs of seniors. And develop programs and services. You can see this statement on how could be Minister of Seniors in this link on Emeriti Network region that is about. We also checked the IT access of Emeriti and retired professors with some questions that we gave to them on email account after retirement, on access to software through the university base after utilize the IT support in their computer and so on. But I will give the floor to Joseph, who will say something about this part of our research. We have to put us one question. Is it ethically correct that the university does not allow a professor to use university email account after retirement? Jože will give you some ideas. For the Naples Congress in 2002, we presented our paper, and not just the paper, but we invited the European Association of Professor Emeriti to issue a position paper on retired professor entitlement for access to university IT. In 4 points. One was access to resources. The second was promotion of best practices regarding minimal standards and approaches for all university, but not just within association, but also in the European Commission or EU bodies. And then guidance. Universities should publish the condition how they can guide one when somebody of retired professor or emeriti professor needs advice or assistance and so on. But none of those was done. No paper was issued. So I invite now first Joseph Richard to present the position paper on IT access, and then Gregory Sadlek, there was for our work editor, to briefly present the research spirit of the group. The floor is yours, Joseph and Greg.
Thank you, Lucia. Basically, I would like to ask you a few questions which were already indicated by Lucia. Is it honest? Is it fair to close the university email account to a professor when she or he retires? It's about half of universities that permit to use email account after retirement. Some don't. Many don't. What do you think? Is it fair to a person spending 20, 30, 40 years in an organization and then closing the account? There are two major problems related to that. One, not having university email access to various databases and journals is not possible. This is a discrimination. Second point, and maybe even the worst one, is To the person not having university email account, there is no help, no assistance for university users. People are on their own. When the new technologies are appearing, updates are needed, there is no one to help. Well, not exactly. They may have children, they may have grandchildren, and they will be helped somehow. Many will not. And basically, as Lucia already said, is it fair? I don't think it is. And I believe it is stupid. Technology is already there. Everything is in place. Just shouting some people out. A proposal to this meeting would be that you, Lucia, and the chair of the meeting, Michael, would write a few lines of your message based on documents published already and today's meeting, which could be and would be provided to university management in many countries in order to support our colleagues who are not emeriti. Many are not, and they are kicked out. We can help. It's my personal opinion that we, who do have the right to maintain, to keep university email account, are obliged to do so. We have to consider that the time has changed. It's now 2024. Technology is all over. There are many services available online only and will not be available to old, elderly and retired professors. My suggestion would be, let's do that, since I believe it would be fair, honest, and something what many would expect from our group to do. Lucia, thank you.
Greg?
Thank you. Thank you, Lucia. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Okay, good.
well,
Thank
I
you.
can.
Okay, great, great. Well, thank you. As Lucia said, my role in this project was basically a wordsmith or an editor. I worked with the group to we had a group of 7, and of course we had to got many valuable sources of information and input, but that of course had to be reduced to a single paper. Now in the humanities, which is my area, the tradition is still pretty much single authored articles, but those of you in the sciences and social sciences, I think, are much more aware of co-authored articles, so you know the process, you know the challenges of working in a group to produce a single paper. So I don't think I need to talk too much about that to this group. My sense is I was very happy to be a part of this group because its focus was on something which we all considered a public good. That is the training, experience, and wisdom of professors who have spent a career serving students, serving society, and gaining incredible amounts of perspective and wisdom over the years, and that should not be lost. Of course, many professors who come to retirement are more than happy to walk away and just cultivate their gardens, as Voltaire said. But many others are still young in heart and full of energy and full of commitment to continue to contribute. And so what I found most impressive about this group was this commitment not to have
this source of public good lost to our countries and our societies. So, and we also, besides collecting data, I think we called it at one point, we produced the starting point, because our surveys that went out were just suggesting topics and problems, but we also, the group took it beyond that to make substantial proposals for progress going ahead. And all this to me was very encouraging and very worthwhile. And it clearly, in terms of the subject of our seminar today, clearly an important way in which Emeriti faculty can help education. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg, did you have a separate presentation that you were going to make?
I do. Yesterday, I asked George to forward a link to a cluster of articles that I just edited for one of our professional organizations, one of our professional publications. And it overlaps very nicely with the project of Lucia and our other colleagues. That is, how do we support a resource that has been developed that has potential to contribute to the public good? My project differs from the earlier one simply because before we were talking about the experience and expertise of retired faculty members. My concern in this collection of articles was the experience and expertise of newly minted PhDs who face a terrible job market. The beginning of this project occurred in 2021 when I read, first of all, I should say I'm a medievalist. Medieval studies cuts across many traditional disciplines in the humanities, literature, history, art history, music, philosophy, and so on. These young PhDs are being trained in all these disciplines, but are coming onto a job market that is absolutely terrible. The most recent report from the Medieval Academy of America called the situation not a job market, but a job lottery. In other words, it's almost impossible to pull the winning numbers out of a hat. And there are many reasons for it. I think, Michael, your summary of the state of education in the United States was very helpful background for this particular presentation. I'm not sure that it's quite the same in Europe and other places, partly because in Europe, the cost of attending university is sometimes free and sometimes just very, very low. Whereas in America, to get a post-secondary education, it can be, as you rightly said, Michael, an incredibly expensive proposal. And therefore, students who choose to major in fields that are not directly tied to a particular job, who are not studying applied sciences or business or health sciences or whatever, can take a pretty significant risk in borrowing lots of money for a degree, and they find themselves on a job market that is unforgiving. The public perception, of course, is often that degrees in the humanities do not prepare you to do anything. And as a longstanding professor in the humanities and the dean of a liberal arts college for 14 years, I can tell you that's not true. Many of the graduates of my college went on to be very successful entrepreneurs, lawyers, businessmen, and so on and so forth. So that's not true because, as you said, Michael, they bring in a different perspective.
and can add a new, a very rich perspective to what people in an established business or association are used to. In any case, that's so. Anyway, so my concern when I saw that job report is, what do you do to try to ameliorate this terrible situation? Because if you have people studying, giving 6 years, 5 years of their lives going for a PhD, they've accrued a lot of skills that are going to go to waste, or potentially go to waste, because they can't get a proper job. The truth is that in the period between 2011 and 2021, while new tenure track positions in certain fields that are basically tied to more practical skills like health sciences, engineering, and business, the number of tenure track positions have pretty much remained consistent over that period. Whereas in the humanities, the number of tenure track positions have declined by about 17%. And now it's difficult. The National Science Foundation collects data on the number of graduates in different fields, but medieval studies, they don't. And the problem is because medievalists graduate from many different departments, English departments, history departments, and so on and so forth. These departments don't collect the number of people in every specific subspecialty. But it's clear that the number of positions for people coming out in any of these fields has become very, very difficult. When I was a graduate student, I was surrounded by colleagues that considered the importance of what they were doing self-evident. And up until maybe the past 2 decades, I think this was generally a consensus in American society, that it was valuable to study the humanities and so on, with other subjects like sciences and so on. But that consensus in America has pretty much been lost. And as Michael, as you said, it's not only the humanities, but college education itself that is losing support. So it seems to me that now the duty of people in humanities is to not only learn their field, but to be able to articulate the value of what they're proposing. Why would anybody pay anybody to do any work in the humanities unless there was a social value associated with it? So, and of course, in a practical sense, why would provosts and presidents and deans agree to fund positions in these areas unless they too were convinced that there was an important social value in that? So those of you who've been administrators know that often quantitative data play an outsized role in making these decisions. Enrollments, number of graduates, and so on and so forth. But my argument is that yes, quantitative data are very important. However, they should not eclipse the importance of qualitative arguments based on value, because value, of course, on one level is associated with monetary value. Return on investment has become an important keyword in the United States with respect to the value of different areas of study, but also there are larger areas of value in terms of what a subset of studies can give in return to the society, to the greater public good. So my idea was to assemble a team of some of the most eminent medievalists and ask them to think about this question. What is the social value of what they teach, what they publish, and so on and so forth? So I edited this cluster. I chose it was an international. I had somebody from Oxford, somebody from Belgium, somebody from France, Australia, United States, and so on and so forth. International, not only literature scholars, but archivists and political scientists, and so on and so forth, to write essays putting in a nutshell what the social value is. And so this is to be, our intention was to create a kind of resource for faculty who need to make a proposal to fund a particular position in medieval studies. What kind of arguments, beyond the quantitative arguments, what kind of qualitative arguments can they make that would be convincing to an administrator? But going beyond that, what kind of public advocacy can they bring to the table to make this argument not only within the narrow community of universities, but the wider community of students, potential students, parents, and so on and so forth. So I think Emeriti faculty have a perspective built from long experience and long exposure to their area of studies that can use that to inform the arguments of their junior colleagues and even administrators on different university levels. So that's basically, again, it ties back into not wasting a public good. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate what you just said there, and think about so the various experiences I've had over the years in realizing how a diversity of perspectives is valuable in all situations. It is the reason I started bringing my students away from the Midwest and to Europe, so that they could see that there was something other than Cleveland, which you know well.
Yes.
And also, as I sat on boards, I would find that I was the only person who was not an attorney or a doctor, and they would look at me and say, "You really have a different view than we do," and it's valuable.
Yes.
Anyway, that is all of the official presentations for today. I think, Jose, we have another 20 minutes if we wish to talk some more. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, go ahead.
So it's open for comments and questions. And I hope someone will have comments.
I have a question for Richard about his experience mentoring. What is the reaction of the junior faculty, the teaching faculty? What has your experience have been? Because teaching faculty that's at least as far as I'm aware, a rather new innovation over the past 10 or 20 years to have these positions that are exclusively teaching, which means that they have a much higher teaching load and often a much lower salary than tenure track. What kind of issues and problems do they bring, and what's the mood among those teaching faculty in your experience?
Excellent question. I don't think there's one answer. I think at least among the 3 to 6 that I've interacted with, I would say that it varies. There's one lady that is there for teaching. That's her thing. And the students come first, salary and all the other crud type of things come second. And I, you know, I think she's gold. You know, that is who the university is getting their dollars worth right there. Okay. You know, her motivations are really in sync with what her contract is, and she just loves teaching. And I sometimes get into a little research discussion with her, and so what? You know, that's something in the future. Or that's, you know, it's not really applicable for the students or something, you know. And then there's sort of the other side where there was one fellow who was about ready to go in and talk to his boss, whoever that is, at the college, and say that he only got, I don't know, 3%, 5% salary increase this last year, and that's not fair. And, you know, when compared with my job in industry, you know, I should have been getting 10%, or, you know, the typical bitching about salary. And yeah, it took me 30, 40 minutes to kind of get the guy down to, you know, saying, look, you know, you're there for teaching, you know, you know, do you get satisfaction with benefiting the students? So it's an excellent question. And that's where I said in some of my points, you know, you got to do the mentoring very gently, because everyone's kind of a little bit different in terms of motivations. But I think the critical point is that they produce a very important value to the higher education in that particular college. You know, they do allow the tenured and tenured track professors to spend more time on their research, and therefore maybe achieve a little bit more status in their publications and associations there. So it does relieve that burden of teaching. But on the other hand, the main mission of the university is to teach, you know, to produce the next generation of people. And these are very, you know, this is a college business, so they're producing people that should have a high value to society. So great question. And
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? First of all, I'll comment that my experience with those teaching professors is that they often teach only the first year introductory courses, but they do an excellent job teaching courses that tenured faculty find boring or uninspiring. They would prefer to teach upper level courses.
Let me put it this way. I disagree. Okay? I disagree heartily, and it comes from my experience in my personal undergraduate. I went to the California Institute of Technology, Caltech. All of our initial courses for the first 2 years were taught by some of the most senior faculty in that particular discipline. Richard Feynman, Paulus Lining. I mean, in other words, I got to see some of the best. I mean, these were Nobel Prize winners, and I feel so fortunate for that experience. It's not just teaching fundamentals in those foundation courses. It's really inspiring people that there is a lot of excitement, there's value in those courses. And if we degrade those fundamental foundation courses right in the first year, what are we doing to the students? So that's my disagreement.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%. But just my experience as a department chair and a dean suggests that not all senior faculty members share that perspective. But anyway, my follow-up question is
You
this.
should kick them in the butt and tell them that that's their perspective, okay? They need to share their excitement of the research they're doing, okay?
Yeah.
And because that's what the environment that your students will be existing in the future. So maybe it's poor leadership on the part of the university.
That could be.
Greg,
But
before
my
you ask
follow-up
your follow-up
question.
question, Raymond has had his hand up for a while. I don't know whether he wanted to jump in on that question also.
Yeah, sure, if I can.
Please. Please.
Hello to everybody. It was very interesting to listen to reflect. I'm Emeritus from the oldest university in Switzerland called Basel University. We're about 600 years old. But now I live here in Geneva together with Luigi, who is also now participating in our discussion today. I have the following points I'd like to share with you. I like Gregory's presentation just now, and I'd like to build on that. And maybe it brings me back also in discussions with the other speakers who have presented. Medieval studies. That's a great topic. I don't understand anybody who wouldn't be interested to find out about the heights and the lows of what our forefathers and foremothers have done in the Middle Ages, especially today, when you see them busy slaughtering each other in Ukraine, in Gaza, in Sudan. It takes me personally back to the Middle Ages. And they're very present today. Forget about all the artificial intelligence. It's just, that's reality. Now, here in Geneva, we don't have that strong cutoff that when you retired, we call it in French, at 65, you have to face the guillotine. You know, your head is chopped off. And, you have to make space for younger faculty. It's okay to create a job for younger people. It doesn't yet mean that we have to run like a chicken without a head, feeling we're now dead. Life is over, and we just go and look after our garden, as I think Richard was mentioning. Nothing wrong with being a gardener, but we have other things to share, particularly in the developed countries where we all know life expectancy has increased. So we are bound to go up to maybe 80, 90, and if we're lucky, we're still in good health or good enough health to do things. So what I see much more happening in Geneva is that people don't drop off. We have meetings. For instance, the people in the UN agencies who retired created an organization called Gray Cells. The Gray Cells do fantastic stuff, looking at what are the issues about migration. Right now, they're doing a study, and then we have a conference to talk about what's the role of the United Nations. So, other colleagues in the US, I think, coined the right term, and that is, it is okay to be a scholar. You don't have to be an academic. You don't have to be, a tenure professor to do the normal stuff. A scholar is somebody who is interested in thinking, who is interested in history, who has some special skills to share. be it with young or with the same age group, even with people who are older than we are. So to write, to go to meetings, to share what we have over the ages, acquired, I see nothing wrong about that. And maybe the real issue is if we got leadership in our universities that are very, very small-minded people who just rattle down their field and keep on repeating with the young faculty the same old stuff. I think it's such a boring and terrible cul-de-sac. In French, we say it's a one-way street. People at the end complain, like Richard, you gave the example. I had that when I was also teaching in New York many years ago, that people complain about the salary, that they have a few dollars, not like the colleague who's teaching here or whatever. We know these type of this disputes and discussions, and they're so depressive. We have to. I think what we need to do at our age, and I'm in the middle 70s, I have with great pleasure, I write, I publish, I'm a reviewer, I go to conferences, I raise my hand, even if the people present are mostly younger people. If there's something we can share and have something to say, I think that's what we should do. And not to be parked, or not go and park ourselves into some dead end. It is bad for our psychological well-being, and it also is bad in terms of how the younger ones perceive us. If they think really he's just only looking for getting out and then do his private stuff, and I think then we shouldn't complain about ageism. People just, if they don't have a contrary experience of people with age still are alive, active, engaging, they think that's the way it is. Once they're retired, that's finished. They go and do a little bit of fathering and mothering of the children or grandchildren, some gardening, and then they wait until they leave. Nothing, again, Richard, don't take me wrong, nothing wrong with gardening. But the heck, we've been at the university for so many years. We know a lot. What keeps us from engaging ourselves with those who don't even know yet as much as we do? And we should learn and participate. I think that's my proposal I would like to put to the whole group. We should be going out and just invite ourselves into the meetings, be it for academic reasons or being just for social society reasons. There are plenty of things to talk about. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Richard. Rebecca, you've had your hand up also. Would you like to say something? Rebecca?
Oh, sorry, yes, just a very short comment. And I am commenting basically on the issue of retired professors retaining their emails at universities. I'm speaking from Botswana, and I'm a retired professor. I retired 3 years ago. And the problem here, I'm just sitting and hearing this brilliant idea of requesting universities to have their professors retain their emails. And my one question is just for me is, where am I going to start? Because here in Botswana, the day you retire, they block you, completely block you. They block your email. They even block, even you have something, block you from coming back to the university. Saying this is a brilliant idea, because some of us, like myself, I still feel like I still want to continue some of the things that I was doing at the university, especially even right now. I am volunteering to do graduate research, training some graduate research and supervising. And really, this for me, no one is recognizing it, but I'm doing it. So basically, I was saying, if there is a way of what you are suggesting, penetrating and coming to a country like Botswana, where they still do not really, when you retire and you are retiring because of age, where age here is still equivalent to vulnerability or inability. I'm just listening and wondering, where are we going to start as retired professors here, so that we can just take one step to let them know that we may be retired, but some of us, we still really want to continue in our professional experiences to do what we have been doing. But that is just a comment. I was just wondering, how is it going to be made, what you are suggesting, going to be made a global issue, so that it can come to Botswana at least.
Can I ask a very short question?
Please.
Thank you. As I said, I'm from Germany, and I don't think we have this problem. So it would be very helpful if those who are initiating this request could send around some information that you know in which countries that blocking takes place and where it doesn't. Because I have never heard about it before. I read from Luigi some time ago on email. To me, it's very clear that all our Emeriti professors have first name dot last name at institution.de. And nobody ever said it didn't get there. So just if anybody, not during the meeting, but can have some list, some map of countries where it's a problem and where it's not, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Botswana will be number one.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. Say that again, Rebecca.
No, I was saying Botswana should be number one country in that, because ageism here still works and is very, very active. Just because of your age, they wouldn't want to engage you.
Yeah, I do. Jill, was that your hand going up?
I was drinking coffee, Michael.
Okay, it was your hand, but I didn't see the cup.
I'm really enjoying the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of really great points being brought up here.
So, you know, we talked about email. There are, as I think we all know, there are countries where there are very strict, rigid guidelines. When you reach a certain age, and seems to be 65 is very common, you're out. Korea, South Korea is one of them. Very dear friend of mine, one of my doctoral students, was the vice provost for research at Seoul National University. And when he became 65, and I'm not sure whether they do it 65 the way most of us count, or 65 the way the Koreans count, which in fact could be as much as 2 years earlier, you're out and you're totally cut off. And Claudia, you may even know An Jung-ho, that I was ashamed to watch what the resource that is lost.
I've never heard that the email address doesn't reach people anymore. I mean, I have Frank Land on my list. In the UK, it seems to work. In Germany, it works. In Switzerland, it seems to work. So other resources, I don't know, as I'm a bit younger, but I never heard that email addresses don't reach the addressee. And so if it's a country approach, then of course it would be helpful that I know, for me and many of our colleagues, that we send mails to Nirvana. Huh? But thanks. I was just trying to pick your brains on these things.
Greg, you were going to ask one question. I think we are coming to the end of our, actually, we're past the end of our hour. I'm looking at the wrong clock here, which tells me I have a minute left. I don't know who is running this. Alexander? Is it time that we say this has been a wonderful conversation, and I want to thank all of the speakers and all who attended, and I hope that we will have more emeritus faculty, retired faculty will continue to contribute. As I said before, it's fun, it is psychically rewarding, and sometimes financially rewarding as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, if you want, you can continue. We are not time.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to continue because I have another meeting.
Thank you, Richard. No, Michael. Thank you, Michael, for getting us together. This has been a great session.
Wonderful. Thank you all for
Bye, guys.